Hey, my friend, I'm Dr. Lee Warren, and I'm so grateful to be back with you for some more self-brain surgery. We're going to have a talk today that we first started talking about the idea for about a year ago. You didn't know it, but I sort of wrote my new book with you on the podcast last year. As I was writing the book, I would talk to you about something on the podcast and use that half hour of time on the podcast to noodle out some of the things that I wrote in this new book. And back then, all the episodes were just audio only. I wasn't recording video with you. Like, we're trying to record everything now so you have a video option if you want to watch it on YouTube. Please check out our YouTube channel, by the way. Our assistant, Lauren, has really done a great job getting the YouTube channel up and running. We're trying to grow that. We're about almost 3,000 subscribers now. When we get to 5,000 subscribers, I'm going to have a bonus for you. We're going to do a little special thing just for helping us get there. And so we may have some giveaways and some other things going on to celebrate that 5,000 subscriber milestone. Really can't wait to get there, and I need your help to do that. So gather a team around you, get people to subscribe. And if you enjoy watching the videos, then watch us on the YouTube channel at Dr. Lee Warren. Okay. But today I want to talk to you about something that we talked about on the podcast last year as I was writing the book. Of course, my new book, The Life-Changing Art of Self-Brain Surgery, Connecting Neuroscience and Faith to Radically Transform Your Life. That book is coming in February. We are opening up for pre-orders now, but on Amazon, they linked my name incorrectly, so you can't go search for my name and find the new book, which is irritating, but it'll be fixed pretty soon. So once we have that piece set up where you can actually go find it, then I'm going to release the cover to you on social media. So if you're not following on social media, at Dr. Lee Warren on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Doc Lee Warren, D-O-C Lee Warren, on X or Twitter, because somebody hacked my Dr. Lee Warren account. So if you're following me on Twitter, that's not me. You'll see a whole bunch of stuff about cryptocurrencies and investment ideas and all that. Somebody claiming to be me. It's not me. Twitter has been no help on getting my account back, so it's just gone. So I started the Doc Lee Warren. I'm not really active on Twitter anyway, especially after that happened. But if you're looking for me on Twitter, I'm not Dr. Lee Warren on Twitter. I am at Doc Lee Warren. So if you want to find me on social media pretty soon, you follow me there, then you'll see a cover reveal for the new book. I'm so excited about the cover. They just did a beautiful job. So I'm excited to release the cover to you. Once we have pre-orders available, then I want to release the cover, and make sure you're following me on social media, and you'll get to see that as soon as we release it to the world, and then you'll be able to go pre-order the book if you want to. Pre-orders really help things like visibility on Amazon on the day it's launched. Like, the more pre-orders you have, the more likely the book is to show up on the homepage of Amazon, which is where the whole world gets to see it. And it's more likely to hit a bestseller list and all those things. So pre-orders are important. It's really helpful. If you know already that you want to buy this book and read it, then pre-ordering will really help me. So stay tuned for an announcement about that. We'd love for you to take action on that. Follow us on social media. Follow us on YouTube. Be ready to pre-order when we ask you to. That'd be amazing. So today I want to do a couple of things. We've got hundreds of new subscribers, hundreds of new listeners. The show grew about 35% in June. We're already performing about 20% higher than that for July. So new people are listening. And a lot of those people came from Susie Larson. We've had a monthly appearance on Susie Larson for the last 2 years. So I'm grateful for Susie. We had a whole bunch of new subscribers from Joe Hargreaves, a faith-filled therapist, and Christy Osborne and Meade Shirley and their team, and my friend Jen Couch and her Sober Sis community, John Seidel and his community over at Veritas Daily. All these communities, Erica Anderson's people, all these Substack teams coming on board and joining us up here with Self-Brain Surgery. So we're super grateful. But if you're new here, I just want to take a second to introduce myself. I know not everybody reads the newsletter. By the way, you should be reading the newsletter. Every Sunday since 2014, I've given you my best prescriptions for how you can change your mind and change your life, starting today using neuroscience and faith. And when we smash them together, the power that we get to become healthier and feel better and be happier, that's the kind of stuff that we talk about every week on the newsletter. I give you a neuroscience nugget. I give you a faith fact. We smash science and faith together in some way. I give you news for your neurons. We talk about some sort of article or study or book or something that's helpful and some research that you can learn something from. And then I give you a prescription for that week. It's really short, practical stuff. It really help you change your life and get this self-brain surgery stuff under your belt from a practice standpoint. You don't just go to medical school and train for a long time and become a neurosurgeon and then never study again, never learn anything new again. You wouldn't be a very good doctor. Well, as a self-brain surgeon, I want you to have an ongoing relationship with learning and education, understanding more and more about this phenomenal connection that God gave us between mind and brain, body and genetics and epigenetics and life and other people, And I want you to just keep learning. So the newsletter is an important part of this podcast newsletter tandem. We smash them together, okay? So drleewarren.substack.com is the newsletter. Please check it out. It's free. There are paid options, but it's free for everybody every week since 2014. So I just want to introduce myself for a second, because if you're one of the new folks here, I want to make sure you slide into this self-brain surgery practice and really figure out what we're all about, and don't get left behind wondering why we're talking about quantum physics one week and psychology another week, and maybe we're talking about epigenetics, or maybe we're talking about neuroscience, or maybe we're giving you some catchy neurosurgery operation to apply to self-brain surgery. Maybe we have a Theology Thursday or a guest that talks about the Bible. We have all kinds of different things going on. I want you to understand how we tie all those things together. And today we're going to have a conversation. It's probably going to be a series of 3. It might end up being 2 episodes, but I think it's going to be 3 to get it all done. And we're going to talk about something we call approaches. We did this last year as I was writing the book. I gave you a few audio episodes to talk about these approaches, but today we're going to unpack them a little bit more. But let me just introduce myself first. As I said, I am a brain surgeon, a real-life brain surgeon, not just an internet neurosurgeon, but a brain surgeon. I do brain surgery, spine surgery, peripheral nerve surgery like carpal tunnel and ulnar nerve releases, and trained to do carotid endarterectomies, although I don't do them anymore, and brain aneurysm surgery and all that. So full-scale neurosurgery. And I do a lot of work trying to help people relieve pain and deal with trauma and deal with tragedy and deal with what seems to be a terminal illness sometimes. And that's what I trained for. I went to medical school, went straight through. I joined the Air Force and got a scholarship for medical school. And then the Air Force sent me to San Antonio, and I was done with my training in Pittsburgh. I served active duty for 4 years, and I got sent to the Iraq War. And a big part of my story is the combat neurosurgery experience that I had in 2004 and 2005. I did a little over 200 brain surgeries and a bunch of other surgeries in a tent hospital. I survived 100 mortar and rocket attacks, and I came home really changed. I was a different surgeon, a different man. I went through a divorce. I was a different person altogether. I had a lot of brokenness in my life, and I dealt with PTSD, and I learned a lot of things, and I overcame a lot of things. And then I found my way back, and I met Lisa, and we got married and blended our 2 families, and everything seemed to be going right. And then 2013, our son Mitchell died. He was tragically stabbed to death at age 19. And then I was right back in the post-traumatic life again, as I had been after the war. So it took me a long time to come home from that. And what got me through that was smashing faith and neuroscience together, was learning what we now call the art of self-brain surgery that I'm here every week to teach you. So I'm a neurosurgeon. I'm an author because I started writing about these experiences, and I figured out that I could communicate with writing and podcasting, something that was very important, because it dawned on me that I had always thought my job was to be a neurosurgeon, to practice neurosurgery, to perform neurosurgery. But then I figured out that wasn't really my job. It was part of my job, but my real purpose, my real mission, and by the way, if you can figure out what your real purpose and mission is, if you figure those things out, you can survive anything. Because the truth is, when you go through something hard, if you find a way to attach it to purpose and meaning, that'll give you life again. That'll give you the strength to pull on that rope that we call hope again. And I realized my job wasn't neurosurgery. It was never neurosurgery. It was helping people figure out what was hurting them and what to do about it. That was my job. And I can do that with writing, with podcasting, with newsletters. I can do it with neurosurgery. I can do it in the operating room. I can do it with my prescription pad. But I can do it right here, face-to-face with you. I can help you figure out what's hurting you and what to do about it. And once I was able to do that, articulate that, and really understand it, then I understood that the purpose of my suffering and the things that I'd been through was to help me become more resilient for the future, because sadly, most of us don't just go through one hard thing in our life, one massive thing as we call it. So I was going to be ready for the next one, because the Bible says, he makes this promise that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And if you can buy into that idea, then you can make it through. And then you can start recognizing that when you help other people make it through too, it makes you feel better. It helps you carry your load more easily. It's kind of a weird quantum physics, kingdom math kind of thing, that when you help somebody else carry their load, your load gets a little bit lighter. That's why the Bible said, bear one another's burdens. So I realized a long time ago what my real job was: help people figure out what's hurting them and what to do about it. And that's who Dr. Lee Warren is, okay? War veteran, found my feet again, lost a child, went through the devastation of becoming a bereaved father, And it turned out that drew Lisa and I closer, actually. We grew together through that tragedy, and as the Bible promises that you can. And we found our hope, and we found it through something that we call self-brain surgery. You see, I was raised up in an era of neuroscience where we believed that you were really just your brain. You were generated, the thing you think is you, your mind, is generated by brain activity. And of course, we know now there's a lot of questions about that, and I don't believe that anymore. But it started with the understanding that mind and brain are different when we got to see it with our own eyes in some experiments that I wrote about in the new book, and we've talked about on this podcast a bunch of times. But functional brain imaging showed me that I'm not just my brain. And that's where I found hope. And once I found that hope, I was able to put together the whole package of what we now call self-brain surgery. And I wrote about the genesis of it in my book, Hope is the First Dose. Once we realized that you're not stuck with the brain you have, and in fact, you never have been. Your brain makes new cells every day. That process is called neurogenesis. And those brain cells make new connections between each other. Those are called synapses. Every second of every day, your brain is constantly changing, friend. You're not stuck with the brain that you have. You're not stuck with the brain your parents gave you. You're not stuck with your genetics. You're not stuck with your trauma. You're not stuck with anything you've been through, because your brain is able to change as long as you direct it to change in a healthy way. Every second of every day, you're making a new brain. And we know now very clearly from neuroscience that mind creates brain. Your mind has the power to change the structure of your brain. So the big turning point for me was this. When I realized that brain surgery for me in my practice was when I intentionally made structural changes in my patient's brain for the purpose of helping them and maybe not kill them and helping them get better, that was brain surgery. But when I realized that self-brain surgery is the decision that you make to stop being a helpless patient and start being a self-brain surgeon on your own behalf and intentionally direct structural changes in your own brain for the purpose of becoming healthier and feeling better and being happier, maybe not dying. It's exactly the same thing. You're performing surgery. It's not a metaphor. It's the mechanism for how you change your life by changing your mind first. That's what self-brain surgery is. So that's why you're here, okay? Long background, several minutes of talking, just to tell you that. That's what we're doing here, okay? Guess what? Now that we know that your brain makes new cells and new connections between them all the time, we've discovered that the number one inciting factor for how the brain chooses how to wire those new cells together or wire them right back into the same old network so everything stays the same is how you think. It's literally when you change what you think about, your brain makes immediate structural real changes. We talked about microtubules the other day. Go back and listen to that episode. That's the genesis of it. Your brain creates new connections based on the content and quality of your thinking. It makes different levels of neurotransmitters. It makes different networks. It can involve different hormones and get different genes turned on and turned off. It can change the genetics and epigenetics and even outcome of your offspring, how your children are born in terms of how they handle stress, and all those things can be changed by you deciding that it's time to be different. You choose to think about one thing and not another thing. And you make structural, physical things happen inside your brain and inside your body and inside your life, and you affect other people too. That thinking differently produces surgical changes in your brain, just like I make when I perform brain surgery in the operating room on my patient. There's no difference in real self-brain surgery, if you will. The video watchers are going to say that I made air quotes around that, quote unquote, real surgery is no different than self-brain surgery, except that self-brain surgery doesn't require you to have a license or go to school until you're 32. It doesn't require a haircut or me sawing into your skull. You can structurally change your brain, and that means that you can change your life by changing how you think. And that turns out that the Bible's been telling us that for thousands of years. Romans 12:2 says, don't conform. No. Don't think like everybody else thinks. Don't let your brain be shaped by how the world tells you have to think and how you have to react and how you've always done something or how your family's always done something. Don't conform to that. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's why the new book is called, the subtitle, Connecting Neuroscience and Faith to Radically Transform Your Life. This is radical, earth-shattering stuff, because guess what, friend? You don't have to be like you've always been. 2 Corinthians 10:5 says, take every thought captive. Now we know the mechanism of how you can actually do that and what happens in your brain when you do. If you want to be less anxious, be more grateful. The Bible said that a long time ago, and now modern neuroimaging is showing us it's true. Philippians 4 is like a little handbook of modern functional neuroimaging and neurobiology of what happens when you choose gratitude over anxiety. Okay? So our textbook, our biblical handbook of self-brain surgery is Romans 12, 2 Corinthians 10, Ephesians chapter 4. Okay? Those three, and Philippians chapter 4. Those four, the basis of self-brain surgery scripturally. There's a million other scriptures all throughout the New and the Old Testament. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The things you think about turn into real things in the world. Jesus said, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. David prayed, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart. So not just what I say, but what I think. Be pleasing to you, O God. So what we think about is important because it controls what our brains do. It controls what our bodies do. It controls our electromagnetic field and the way we interact with other people through our heart math and our field and our quantum entanglement. How you think changes other people. It changes epigenetic realities for your family and the generations after you. And it can break or cause generational issues, curses, if you will. It can fix those things too. Listen, this is so important. My dad used to say, hey, he would snap his fingers. He would clap his hands. Look in my eyes. So if you're watching on video, look in my eyes. My blue eyes right here. They're probably red because I've been sneezing all day. Look in my eyes. How you think turns in to how you live. That's what self-brain surgery is, okay? We're giving you tools and operations so you can stop thinking about making big changes in your life and you can start operating. You can stop contemplating and start getting it done. You can decide that you're not a helpless patient. You're not a victim anymore of your brain. You're not a victim of your genetics. You're not a victim of the mean things that your dad said to you or the bad thing that your husband did or your wife said or the trauma that you went through. And I'm not downplaying those things, but you're not stuck with the brain that you have. You're not determined by your genes. You're not determined by your neuronal activity. You're not determined by your trauma. You're determined by your response to it. You're determined by the quality of your thinking and how you let the great physician, and maybe me helping you too, or other people in your community, help you change your mind and change your life. That's what self-brain surgery is. It's when you finally say to yourself, hey, what got me here? The way of thinking, the way of dealing, the way of responding, what got me here won't get me there. Now look, we all feel some call on our life. We all have this vision in our mind of the place that God has called us to be. If you don't believe in God, you still have this vision. I can see this graph, and I wrote them in the new book, this graph that says, hey, over time, I expect my life to get to this place. I feel like I should be performing at this level. I feel like I should achieve this. I should be this happy. I should have this much money. I should be married to this person, whatever. All of us have this idea in our mind of where we should be and where we should reach. And there's some level of performance, though, or some level of outcome that we haven't achieved. Almost all of us, I believe this with all my heart, most of us have a graph of what we think we should be doing and a graph of where we actually are, and they don't line up. And we know that we can't get to that level that we think we should be at by doing the same stuff that we've been doing. At some point, you just get honest with yourself and say, if I keep doing what I've been doing, I'm going to keep getting what I've been getting. What got me here won't get me there. And by the way, the social scientists define hope as the belief that you can get there from here, okay? Hope is the belief you can get there from here. And what got me here, we get to this place and we say, I'm this place in my life. I'm sad. I'm dealing with anxiety, depression, with whatever kind of mental health issue. I'm sad. I'm chronically tired of it. I'm sick. I'm dealing with chronic pain or chronic illness or something that isn't going to change, but I still want my life to be better. So what can I do? I'm sad or I'm sick, right? And I'm stuck. I'm stuck in this place. This thing happened. I lost my son. I can't get past it. I keep looping back to the same old coping mechanisms and drinking or watching Netflix or spending money or breaking up a marriage or whatever because I went through this trauma. I went through the war. I went through PTSD. I got divorced, whatever happened. And I keep looping back. I'm stuck. Maybe so some of us are sad and some of us are sick and some of us are chronically stressed and we're dealing with all the hormones and all the problems and all the anxiety and the cortisol, and some of us are just hopelessly stuck, and some of us are just frankly tired of settling for less of a position on that graph that we see in our minds, we feel in our hearts than we want. So whether, my friend, you're sad or sick or stressed or stuck or just tired of settling, hope is the belief that you can get there from here, and you're going to come to some place in your life, or I think you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. Maybe you've already gotten there, where you say, hey, what got me here won't get me there. I need to change something. I need to change something if I'm going to make it from here to there. And if I'm going to make it from here to there, where hope is, where my goal is, where those curves finally line up, where hopefully I hear, well done, good and faithful servant, I cannot keep doing the same old things, or I'll keep getting the same old result. I can't say the same if I want to change, because friend, look in my eyes again, okay? What I'm not willing to change, I have made a decision about. And the decision I made was that I'm going to keep the thing that I'm unwilling to change, even if I don't like it. It means I'm making a decision, a deal with myself, that I am willing to keep this thing in my life, even if I say I don't want it anymore. Because if I'm not willing to change it, then I'm deciding to keep it. It's a decision, okay? That's when you say, hey, friend, today's the day. We're going to burn the boats. We're going all in. We're not doing all in August this year, by the way. We got some other stuff planned for you for August this year. We'll be back next year, Lord willing. But every year before the last 3 years, we've done this thing called All In August. We've used Mark Batterson's incredible book, All In. It's kind of a textbook, a guide. But this year, we're going to be focusing on the new book and some plans I have for you for August. There's some incredible guests coming up. And we're going to I want you to have this idea, though, that in some point in your life, and I hope it's today, whenever you hear this, whenever you see my face, whenever you hear my voice, hope it's today where you say, you know what? I'm burning the boats. I'm not going back. I'm making a decision. I'm not going to keep this thing in my life anymore, this trauma response, this problem, this numbing behavior, this chronic thing that's keeping me sad, sick, stressed, stuck, settling, not getting to the place. I want hope, and I know I can't get from here to there unless I make a decision to change some things. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to give full attention to the idea that if we are going to change, we've got to get after it. We got to make the changes. So how do we do it? Okay. If you haven't read my books, okay, my 3 big releases in books, I've got a couple of self-published books out there, but the big ones are No Place to Hide, which is my story of the Iraq War and what happened after it, and going through a divorce and marrying Lisa and having PTSD and finding my way home from war and all that. That's the first piece of my story. The second one was called I've Seen the End of You, and we deal with brain cancer and people going through their hardest moments. And I started studying those people to try to be a better doctor to them. And I realized that people basically have 4 responses to hardship and how they handle those things. And right in the middle of sort of putting all that together is when our son died. And I figured out I was one of those people, and what response was I going to have? And I felt like that memoir, which won the Christian Book Award in 2021 for memoir, that I've Seen the End of You, turned out to be kind of a description of how we handle what we went through. And I felt like I left something on the field, that I told a great story, and I shared honestly and vulnerably, and that book has helped tens of thousands of people around the world. We've heard lots of people that said that book really got them up off the mat. But I always felt like I needed to tell you not just that we did something, but exactly how we did it. So Hope is the First Dose, my last book that came out in July of 23, was the treatment plan. Like, how do you handle trauma and tragedy and massive things? How do you do it? What do you do? And that's where I gave voice to the idea of self-brain surgery. We were talking about it on the podcast for years, but the first time I wrote the words down was in Hope is the First Dose. And we talked about how do you do it? What's the treatment plan, the prehab, the self-brain surgery, the rehab community piece, the post-operative stuff. What do you do? How do we do it? So if you're new around here, check out Hope is the First Dose. That's kind of the genesis of everything. The next book that's coming out in February, The Life-Changing Art of Self-Brain Surgery, is insanely tactical. It's not memoir. I tell a lot of stories, tell a lot of things that happened in my career, but it's not memoir. It's self-help, really. It's mechanism rather than story as much. There's a lot of stories in it, okay? So you're still going to feel like you're reading a Lee Warren book, because my wife and all the people from Tyndale, all the publishers, all the publicists, they all say you're a storyteller. You got to tell stories. So through the medium of storytelling, I give you 15 new self-brain surgery operations. I give you 4 of what we call approaches, which is what we're going to talk about today. And I give you a whole bunch, the 10 commandments of self-brain surgery. I give you a whole bunch of tactical stuff, understanding how to turn yourself from a hopeless patient, hoping somebody will come along and save you, to a skilled, compassionate, and technically sound, safe self-brain surgeon. Okay, that's what the new book is. So today, we're going to talk about how you move from one point on the curve to another point on the curve. You're tired of being sad, sick, stressed, and stuck. You're tired of coming up short and settling for less than you believe you're supposed to have. How do you move from one place to the other? That's where we use something called an approach. The manner in which you attack the thing, the way you deal with the problem, the way you're going to the operating room to deliver your attempt to fix the thing is called an approach. The thing you got to know about approaches, though, is there are consequences to the approaches that you choose. In surgery, all the time, if I pick this approach and not that approach, there's a consequence. There's some things I can get done in approach B that I can't get done in approach A. And if I weigh them and I decide to go with approach A, I'm leaving on the table some things that I know I can't do if I choose approach B. So there are consequences to an approach. So today we're going to talk about this idea that there are approaches, and there are basically 4 of them, okay? Now, I want to encourage you before we get started with the approaches, okay? I said a while ago we're not going to do all in August this year, but I do want you to go all in on this idea of finding the right approach for your life. And the best way to do that is to get yourself a community to do self-brain surgery with, okay? Share this episode with 2 or 3 or 5 friends. Grab the link, text it to somebody and say, hey, listen to this with me. Listen to this. Let's talk about it tomorrow. Let's write some things down together. Let's go all in together. Let's find an approach that will work for us in the mutual thing that we've been talking about, that we've been dealing with. And I'm dealing with this and you're dealing with that. Let's deal with it together, okay? Community is the way you get better. You don't get better by yourself, okay? Now, you got me, you got our team. We'll be happy to pray with you, answer questions if you email contact@drleewarren.com. If you want to leave us a message or send us a voicemail or send us an email, we'll be happy to be part of your team. But you need some real people in your life. I'm a real person, but somebody in your life that you can pray with, have coffee with, text back and forth, meet together, and go through these things together, okay? It's important. Build yourself some community. Hey, let's do this thing together. Let's go all in together. I want this idea to build steam in your life, and the only way that's going to happen is for you to build community around it, okay? I want it to grow through our culture. I want everybody to become a self-brain surgeon because I want you to not conform anymore to a lower place on the scale of your own life than God intended for you, that your heart is calling you to. I want it to infiltrate our schools. I want people to teach their kids this stuff. I'm going to write a book, God willing, if I live long enough, and if we have a success with this book, I'm going to write a self-brain surgery for young people, okay? Young adults and kids. We're going to try to do a couple of books, training programs. I want therapists to have this as tools to help young people get better at how they think, because it's the problem in our culture right now, the problem with the youth, the problem with the young generation. Everybody's so mad all the time, and everybody's so outraged all the time. It has to do with our thinking, okay? We'll talk about that more later, but I want this to change your life. I want God's message of hope, of not conforming, but transforming, to save the day for our kingdom, our culture, our society, okay? So you need community to help you do that. I want you to find your people who are ready to decide that they want to change their minds and change their life, that they want to stop chasing after what they think will make them happy and instead change their mind and transform themselves from the inside out. Especially if you're a Christian, the Bible tells you plainly, you have a mind, and that if you accept him, the Holy Spirit will give you the mind of Christ. He will help you think more like Jesus did. And the Bible says it plainly, Jesus never sinned, not even in his thinking. And therefore, if we know that how we think changes how our brain functions, that means Jesus' brain kept getting better because his thoughts kept getting better, okay? So I don't want you to have a brain like Albert Einstein's. I want you to have a brain more like Jesus' brain, because he had a brain that was unspoiled by negative thinking. He had a brain that was unspoiled by harmful thought loops. So let's do some self-brain surgery together to make our brains become healthier, feel better, and be happier, to be stronger, to be more resilient. Because if there's an ideal human brain out there, it's not Albert Einstein's, it's Jesus Christ. So let's get better brains, okay? That's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about approaches. That was a long preamble, but if you're with me, if you got to know me today, if you already knew me, if you understand the mission and the message and the meaning of what we're getting after, if you are with me and you want to do this, I just have one question for you. Hey, are you ready to change your life? If the answer is yes, there's only one rule. You have to change your mind first. And my friend, there's a place where the neuroscience of how your mind works smashes together with faith and everything starts to make sense. So I'll ask you again, are you ready to change your life? Well, this is the place. It's Self-Brain Surgery School. This is where you learn the truth about how science and faith are designed to work together to answer the big questions that trauma, tragedy, and other massive things bring us. Here is where you learn to manage your mind, optimize your brain, and navigate your life to become healthier, feel better, and be happier. This is the Dr. Lee Warren Podcast, where we go deep into how we're wired, take control of our thinking, and find real hope. This is where we leave the past behind and transform our minds. This is where we start today. Are you ready? This is your podcast. This is your place. These are your people. And now is your time, my friend. Let's get after it. Okay, let's get after it. I said this is going to take 2 or 3 episodes. It might take 4. I got so passionate about reintroducing myself to the new folks. I got so passionate about unpacking what self-brain surgery is that I took more time than I intended to. So I don't want this to be a 2-hour-long episode. So I'm going to just give you the ideas behind approaches. And I'm going to tell you about one that I didn't put in the book that I think should have been in the book. And then we'll do the other ones in 2 or 3 more episodes. We're going to spend several Mind Change Monday episodes talking about approach. Now, before we even get into that, though, what are approaches? What does that even mean? So in neurosurgery, in surgery in general, but particularly in neurosurgery, it's easier for general surgeons. If you're doing belly surgery, you just lie on your back, they cut your belly open, dig around in there, they can find the colon. If it's in their way, they can move it out of the way. They can put a bunch of ports in and do it laparoscopically. But basically, whatever's going on in your abdomen, and I'm not simplifying or downgrading general surgery, it's incredible. Those guys are the best practitioners of human physiology of anybody. They're smart, they know what they're doing. They have to deal with a lot more physiological stuff than I do as a neurosurgeon. But once they're in the abdomen, if something's in their way, they can move it out of the way. They can put a retractor and have a medical student, because I did it. They can have, hey, hold this liver out of the way. Hey, grab that retractor and pull the colon out of the way so I can get to the small bowel. They can move stuff. They can grab stuff with a clamp and they can move it over here and cut it and sew it back together. They can do all that. But it doesn't work that way in brain surgery, okay? It doesn't work that way in spinal cord surgery. If I've got a tumor that my patient has in their thalamus, in the deep part of their brain, I can't just grab the temporal lobe and pull it out of the way to get down to the thalamus. I'll injure my patient. I will hurt them, and they won't be okay anymore. And I can't just make a big gash cut in the brain and stick my hand in there and spread the brain apart and grab out the tumor. I can't do that because the brain doesn't tolerate that kind of invasiveness. And so what we have to do as neurosurgeons is I've got to look at a scan and say, okay, the tumor is over here by the pineal gland. How can I get there without hurting anything that I'm going to pass on the way, without tearing the basal vein of Rosenthal and killing my patient? How can I get there without tearing the middle cerebral artery and causing a devastating stroke? How can I get there without injuring the hippocampus and they can't remember who they are anymore? How can I remove this tumor without causing some devastating trouble? Well, that's where we use what we call approaches. And it comes into not just understanding the anatomy of the problem, but the best way to put the patient on the table. How am I going to turn the head? How am I going to place the patient on their side, on their belly, on their back, sitting up? How can I position the patient to give me the best angle, the safest attack to the problem? How can I get to the tumor without cutting the sagittal sinus and bleeding them out? How can I do this without hurting them in some way? And okay, well, maybe the tumor's right here. Why can't I just turn the head as far as I can to get it up there so I can get to it? Well, because if I do that, I might kink off the carotid artery on this side and cause a stroke. So positioning and what's possible to do without harming my patient have to come into my thought process as to what approach I can use. So it's sort of philosophical. It's what is actually possible here. And it's sort of technical. What tools, what instruments, what positioning, what type of bed, what type of head holder, what are the goals of this operation, what kind of anesthesia will I need? And by the way, in self-brain surgery, you're not allowed to use anesthesia. I'm sorry. When you're dealing with something, you don't want to turn your brain off. That's why we don't recommend that you use alcohol as a way to solve problems, because it takes your frontal lobes offline and you can't make good rational decisions about your issues, and you'll end up paying a tomorrow tax tomorrow because you numbed your brain tonight or used some other numbing behavior besides alcohol. We say anesthesia is not allowed in self-brain surgery. That's one of our 10 commandments. I must love tomorrow more than I hate what I feel right now. I must not treat a bad feeling with a bad operation. We don't want to pay the tomorrow tax. We want to deal with today and let tomorrow be enough trouble of its own, as Jesus said. But we also don't want to drag today's troubles into tomorrow and then have two problems to deal with plus a hangover, right? So no anesthesia in self-brain surgery, so we can scratch that one off of our list of things to think about with approach. We also have to think about the potential outcomes and complications and issues, as I told you before. Approaches have consequences. So all this stuff is wrapped up. When I say approach, it's all this stuff. It's philosophy, it's practice, it's technique, it's tools, it's all of those things wrapped up when we're going to choose approaches. So I'm just going to give you one today. And I didn't write this one in the book, and I mentioned it in the podcast before, but it's not actually a whole approach, but it is an approach at the same time. It's kind of like people used to say, not having a financial plan is having a financial plan. It's just a really bad one. So you may not think it's a plan, but it is a plan and it's terrible. So have a financial plan. So this is one that I haven't mentioned a lot and I didn't write about in the book, but I want you to understand it is an approach, okay? And here it is. Some people, probably most people, frankly, aren't listening to this podcast, aren't self-brain surgeons, aren't choosing to be mindful, aren't using metacognition, aren't doing the amped up practice that I taught you. Most people don't ever spend a second thinking, how do I want to attack this day? They just wake up and say, do I feel like doing anything today? No, I don't feel very good. I'll do something tomorrow. They let their feelings decide their agenda for them. Most people don't think, how do I want to attack my life? How do I want to approach going after the things that I think God is calling me? How do I move from one place on the curve to another? Most people don't even think about the curve. They just have this ennui about them, this general angst, this inchoate sense of dread about their life all the time. That, if today goes okay, then maybe I'll get a promotion. Maybe I'll be okay. Maybe this will happen, or maybe not. If I don't feel like it, maybe I'll just quit my job. Most people just don't think about it. Most people don't ponder the idea that God is calling them to some place that's better than they are now, or that God is preparing them with tools and abilities to get through something hard that's coming, or that God may have them in place to help somebody else. Most people just don't think about it very much. So we don't get into this idea of choosing an approach because we don't think about the fact that there are approaches. Most folks just wake up and drink a cup of coffee and get in the shower and go to work and see what happens. And they spend their whole life kind of reacting to whatever occurs. Am I going to be in a good mood today? It depends. If somebody wakes me up, somebody startles me, my alarm doesn't go off, I ran out of coffee, if somebody makes a loud noise, or my breakfast is cold, my McMuffin didn't taste right, then I'm going to have a bad day. I'm just going to have a chip on my shoulder. Just going to be a bad day. And if somebody doesn't let me listen to the music I want, or listen to me, or if the boss is mean to me, or my sister called and forgot to tell me happy birthday or something, then I'm just going to have a bad day, and it's somebody else's fault, because people are jerks and nobody ever does what they say they're going to do and all that kind of stuff. Most people are that way. They're ping pong balls. So they just bounce around and react to things that happen. Okay? You don't have to work too hard to find somebody like that. And if those things happen and they're not going your way, it just means you can't be happy. Most people think that their life has just been reacting. They're just dealing with something like Super Mario Brothers, just running through your life, just bouncing through the maze and jumping up and bouncing your head off stuff, and maybe you'll get some coins, and maybe you'll make it to the end, and maybe you'll get the girl or win the prize, or maybe you won't. You're just endlessly after whatever life throws at you. And I would say that's an approach, even if you don't think it's an approach. It is an approach. And surprisingly, some incredibly successful, even wealthy people sort of follow that approach. This laissez-faire sort of que sera, sera, whatever will be. In fact, I've got a good friend. He's brilliant. He's a professional at the top of his profession. He makes, and I don't want to say too much hyperbole here, he makes way more money than I will ever make in my life. He makes a lot of money. He's incredibly successful. But you know what he does? Doesn't really think about God. If you talk about God, he'll go, yeah, maybe I don't really think about God much. Maybe there's a God, maybe there's not. I just try to be a good person. I'm not stressed out about it. He doesn't read widely, reads professionally, doesn't try to learn new things. He just has a set of what he thinks are guiding principles and values, and he lives by them. He's a good man. He's got a good attitude. He has a good family. He just always sort of thinks things are going to work out. He doesn't worry about anything. He's very successful, okay? Incredibly successful. He's a let's see what happens tomorrow kind of guy. Doesn't spend any time worrying about anything. If you want to have a real conversation with God, he'll chit-chat with you and he'll throw out devil's advocate stuff. Maybe it is. Maybe he's real. Maybe he's not. I don't know. Who's to say? Not important. I'm just going to live my life the best I can and sort it out. If he's a good God, it'll be okay. If he doesn't exist, that'll be okay. And I don't know if God loves me or doesn't love me. I don't know if he's real or not. Not too worried about it, right? He's that sort of a guy. And so here's the thing about that sort of approach. It basically, you live your life reacting to whatever comes along. It's an approach. And I'm just telling you, I don't think it's a very good approach, okay? First of all, there are some big realities in life, okay? You're going to have some hard things happen. And if it's true that there is a God of the universe who has set an order to how he intends things to be done, and if it's true that he has a plan and a purpose for your life, and if it's true that there are consequences for not living your life in accordance with his will for your life, then that's a big deal. And so it would behoove you as a smart person to say, I want to know and test it out for myself and evaluate it scientifically and check it out and see if it's real. I want to know if it's true or not. I don't want to just sort of, maybe not so worried about it. I want you to worry about it, friend. I don't mean stress and worry about it. I want you to find out. The Bible says it very clearly. Taste and see that he's good. Test me and know me and see if I'm not who I say I am. That's what he says, okay? God wants you to be in a relationship with him, okay? And I'm not preaching here. I'm just saying, don't take something big and just not worry about it as a mechanism of deciding not to be investigatory about it. Be a better scientist than that, okay? Now, before you make a big decision in your life, get the research, do the work, think through it, have a scientific method about it, okay? Figure out with intention and with purpose what you believe and why you believe it. That's why I started the Spiritual Brain Surgery podcast, by the way. What we believe, why we believe it, how to test it, defend it, and live it out, all that stuff. Neuroscience as apologetics, really. How do we know what we believe, and how does it fit in with this science and faith smashing together thing, okay? So do some work. Investigate the things you think you feel, think, believe, and do in your life. Or reject the ideology that you thought you had if it doesn't seem to be true, okay? Work it out, but care. I want you to have an approach because you chose it, because you think it's going to help you live your life, not just, we'll see what happens. I don't want you to do that, okay? That's not self-brain surgery. It's not very wise, and it has consequences. Okay, the 4 approaches that I wrote about in the book we're going to talk about next time. Here they are. There's the nothing can help me approach, the maybe something can help me approach, the maybe science can help me approach, and the maybe God can help me approach. Okay, those are the 4 approaches. I'm going to break them down in the next 1 or 2 episodes, possibly 3. I tend to get passionate about this stuff because I want you to become healthier and feel better and be happier. So we're going to talk about approaches. I've defined them for you. I've explained what self-brain surgery is to you, what it's not, and I've given you the understanding of what an approach is and why it is important to at least pick a side and have an approach, because approaches have consequences, and there's a big consequence to not even thinking that you need one, because there's going to come a time in your life, friend. Look in my eyes again. There's going to come a time in your life when you need an approach that will hold you up. Your child dies like mine did. Your child falls off the boat and drowns like our friend Dana Gage. Your child gets a glioblastoma at 17 and passes away before they even get to go to college, like Jill and Brad Sullivan's daughter. Your child floats away because of a massive flood while they're at summer camp, like those desperate people in South Texas are dealing with this weekend. We're praying for them, by the way. Horrific event. If that happens to you, you're going to need an approach to your life, how you're going to put your mind and your heart back together again. Okay? These things happen to people. They happened to me. And I didn't ever think they would, but they do happen. And when they do, you will need an approach that will hold you up and sustain you and help you find your way through the fog and the cloud and the tsunami of doubt and suffering that you will go through, and find your way on the other side to a place that looks like meaning and purpose and hope and maybe even happiness again. I'm telling you, it's possible, but not unless you're willing to develop an approach that will work for you when things get hard. That's how you change your life, my friend. That's how you become healthier and feel better and be happier no matter what you're going through. That is how you do it, but you have to start today. Thanks for listening. If you like the show, please subscribe wherever you listen, and be sure to follow me at Dr. Lee Warren on Instagram and YouTube. And to get the most out of the show, make sure to get my free weekly self-brain surgery prescriptions. Sign up at drleewarren.substack.com, and I'll send you the powerful thought biopsy worksheet for free. drleewarren.substack.com. Every Sunday since 2014, I've been bringing you my best prescriptions for how you can smash faith and neuroscience together to become healthier, feel better, and be happier starting today. I'm Dr. Lee Warren, reminding you to have a very self-brain surgery day.